Hello, my name is Andrew East, and I will be presenting Dungeon Dive, the game created by me and Jake for our Computer Science 171 project. So, just to get started, as soon as you begin the game, you're asked to pick a character: Hunter, Guardian, or Sorcerer. I have the game loaded up in the background, and as soon as we get to the code presentation, we'll be able to choose. We choose them at the very beginning of the game because they have unique stats, and as they level up, they grow at different rates. There's a class of classes, that way we can easily add additional types to be constructed. Each of them will eventually get their own abilities later, like, for example, the Guardian will be able to cripple opponents, making them slower, and the Sorcerer will be able to heal himself. Now on to the bad guys. We use a monster library to determine, to keep track of the total amount of monsters that we have in the game. The choice of monsters are randomly generated, but each monster has its own set stats. It's easy to add any amount of new enemies because this is also in a class for all of the enemies, which makes it very easy to change their stats and change their rewards. Now on to the structure of the game. The game starts and you select your class like we've said. Then you have the choice to continue or to exit. If you choose to exit, obviously it's game over. If you choose to continue, then there's a new enemy. You fight or you run. If you run successfully, it takes you back to the room. You might want to do this if you think you can't beat that enemy, so you want to try to find a weaker one. Then you can try again. If you choose to fight, or if you fail at running, then there's a fight sequence, which is where you roll your attack dice against their attack dice, and whoever's life eventually hits 0 wins. If you live, you loot, and you get some experience, maybe some gold or items if we end up adding them, and that allows you to go back to the original place where you continue, or you decide to exit. If you die, well, that's game over. So good job. Good try. What are the rules? So one of our main stats is speed. Speed determines who gets the first attack each round. Speed also determines if you run away by dice. For example, if you try to run away and your speed is 7, you will roll a 7-sided dice. If your opponent's dice is 5, they'll roll a 5-sided dice. If your dice roll beats their dice roll, you get away. That way it's not guaranteed to get away, but you are more likely to get away. You need to pick your battles of when to run and when to fight. You might not get away from every single match, and that might allow them to kill you. In the future, you will be able to choose what action you take beyond fighting, beyond attacking, maybe like using an item or an ability to heal yourself. Enemies will also be able to use abilities and do extra effects like crippling you to reduce your speed so they get the first attack. Okay, time to demonstrate the code. So as I said, I've already loaded it up, and here you can see our different characters. I'm going to choose Sorcerer, and just so you know, I've cheated and I've increased his stats before we start so I can demonstrate the leveling up. So I can guarantee that he'll win. So, I'm going to choose Sorcerer, 1. Would I like to enter a new room? Yes, I would. Okay, I've come across a Fat Goblin with these stats. 3, 15, and 3. Would I like to try and run? Wait. I'll try again. Looks like Cool, I killed him. Gained 5 experience. Let's try again. To a new room. Okay, it's a weak goblin. Cool, looks like I one-shot him. And then I've leveled up. I am now a sorcerer with these stats. So if you can see, my attack went from 8 to 12. My HP increased from 4 to 6. And my speed increased from 5 to 7. So then I can keep on playing. There's a lot of potential for growth in a game like this, because there's no limit to the amount of various creatures we could add, or other kind of encounters we could add to the monster library. No limit to the amount of loot we can add either. Presently, the only loot is experience. However, we plan to add potions and equipment, which will modify your stats. Rather than procedurally generating one room at a time, we could generate a floor, which would just be an array of these rooms, and at the end of that floor, we could have a boss encounter. We can introduce energy for different attacks, different abilities, which will regenerate every time you clear a room. And we can also write to files to create save states or even decide to write a plot for this game. Just to give you an image of kind of the future potential that it has, is we could do some kind of a matrix like this of various different rooms and ways to travel from one room to the other room. And you could possibly even have a stat that could help you locate traps that might trigger in rooms instead of finding monsters. So, lots of lessons learned. Big one is teamwork makes the dream work. It helps a lot to have someone else watching you write your code and to help kind of guide along to troubleshoot. Abstraction helps a lot, being able to kind of look at your code in these little pieces instead of all in one mass jumble. That made our work so much easier once we pulled our classes out into their own little files. Commenting is good as well. It's very helpful because once you get going, you just kind of take off. Once you find a flow, you write significantly more than you originally planned to, and it's easy to forget to keep up with your comments and keep up with your organization. Much easier to write a lot of simple functions than just one complex one. Congrats! You've survived the PowerPoint dungeon. Thank you.